EGM Network.
Hi, welcome to Silver Linings. Raul and I are here today, and we are excited to introduce our guests, which are Monica Gibbons and Mr. Elton Johnson, and they are from V&A Hospice, and we're going to have some conversations about a hard topic, but before we jump into some of those poignant questions, can you all tell us a little bit about yourselves, why you got into this role? What does hospice represent here in Vero, the Treasure Coast? And what does that growth look like over the years? Because I understand it's a big year for hospice.
Well, my name's Elton Johnson. I am the Director of Sales for the Visiting Nurse Association here in Indian River. I've only been with the company for about 4 months now, but I've been in hospice for 5 years before that and home health for 20 years before that. So I've been in sales for a long time. Hospice has a very near and dear feeling to my heart, if you will. My mom went through hospice, so I have a very passionate side of seeing people being able to take care of them at the end of life, making sure their quality of life is strong and that they go out with dignity, if you will. So I think it's important to understand that hospice isn't a dirty word, and just getting a little bit of education behind it, I think, can really help families understand what's going on.
Oh, I definitely think you're right. Definitely.
My name's Monica Gibbons, and I'm a physician liaison with V&A. I've been here for almost 2 years now. And at the V&A, we have a why statement. And so my why statement is why I came over here to, kind of change my career path is because my dad was in Orlando and his care was not as, for hospice. I think it just took over a week to get on hospice. And so I wanted to make that difference here in Vero. So that's where my goals are, just so when we do get that order for hospice, we can make that, transition within hopefully a day, if not 2 days.
Oh, wow.
So that's why I kind of came over.
So you both have personal interests that drove you into an industry or a field of compassion. So that makes a lot of sense. And I hear that from people that work in industries where you have to have that kind of level of compassion and understanding and empathy. Often it's personal experience that drives us to that. So that can be a wonderful asset when you're in the field. You have an understanding from the perspective of the families, and that's unique. Tell me a little bit more about hospice here on the Treasure Coast, here in Vero Beach, because it has a fairly long history, correct?
Yeah, I mean, this is our 50th year.
50, 50.
50.
Woo, woo, big one.
So this is we just had our big anniversary celebration at our office a month or so ago. So I think it's been a long stretch, and we are the only hospice agency in Indian River County.
Yeah.
I think as we continue to grow and grow out our census is really starting to pick up, and we're really starting to master, if you will, what the hospice need is in this county and grow it. We try to grow with the population as on the unfortunate side of it, of hospice is the passing of a person, to the next life, if you will. Yeah. And we want to make that just as comfortable as we possibly can for them. So anything and everything we can do along those lines is what our goal is. And, even the state and federal governments have different things that they want for us to do, that we have to maintain those measures, if you will. So we want to make sure that we get certain diagnoses on services sooner than later, if you will. So I think that's important to understand, and educating doctors, as much as you hate to say it, sometimes it gets hard because it's hard for us to see them because they're so busy in their offices and everything else. So just getting in front of them to educate them is a really tough battle on our part that Monica and the team battle every single day. So the more we can get in front of them and get that education piece in front, it helps when the time comes, because those conversations are tough.
They are. I know Raul deals with a lot of families that are pre and post loss of a loved one, and it's extremely impactful. And when there's a supporting team through that process, it does make the difference. It doesn't by any means make it better. The trauma is there and impactful to the family specifically, but having teams like yours in place to be able to provide a compassionate resource for them is huge. Raul, how often do you have conversations with people where maybe they've had an experience with hospice?
A fair amount of clients have come in once their loved ones have passed away. And I would say a good amount of the time, their parents were in hospice to some extent, receiving end-of-life care. And I would say it's a big part of the end-of-life stage, especially in this area. I was actually going to ask how big is the team now that we're at year 50 here in Indian River County.
I mean, the sales team, I've got 10. I've got a couple of them that work kind of PRN for us, so 8 full times, and then 2 other PRNs on the sales team. Staff wise, what are we, like 400 plus in this area?
That's a lot.
Now that's home health and hospice, so it's kind of hard to delineate which one's which. But we have like anywhere from 3 to 5 admission nurses on a daily basis that are out doing admissions, and they can do 2 to 3 admissions each a day if we need to. And there are times like weekends, or some weekends we'll have 15 or 16 admissions, but unfortunately we'll have 15 or 16 that pass as well. So it's a never-ending roller coaster, if you will, of people coming and going. We have a lot that, we transition out of the hospital over to the hospice house and things like that. So, we're continuing to try to grow the physician market, if you will, because they get a longer length of stay and we can help them a little bit longer.
Right. It doesn't have to be the very end for them. You brought up Hospice House and coming from an acute scenario for some, and for a lot of people, that is the situation at hand. But you have 2 types of hospice care, and it's not always emergent acute scenarios that drive them to want to have a conversation with the hospice team to see how it can benefit them. Can you explain a little bit about the difference between palliative care and hospice care and what that looks like for a family?
Sure. So our home health our palliative is under our home health agency. So that would be consisting of Lisa Sellers, who is a nurse practitioner here in town. So she has those conversations with maybe even our medical social worker that have those conversations, those hard conversations that sometimes the doctors don't get to. And then they can explain what the path is on hospice. So then we can manage everything in the home as, for physical therapy, when they're not ready to give up that treatment plan yet. If it was cancer, then we just kind of step in and we can kind of help guide them when it's time and that sort of thing. And then they can convert over to hospice.
And is there any med management with palliative care?
Yes. So we have nurses that can do that. And then we communicate with the doctors for that. The doctor is still in charge of their medication.
Oh, absolutely.
So Dr. Venazio is our medical director for hospice. So when they get on hospice, then that goes over to him and he can manage the symptom management as far as the pain levels. And we only treat symptoms. I think that's very important for everyone to know. We don't just give medication. We only treat symptoms, like if they're in pain or restlessness. That's
specific to the person and their needs at the time. I love that. I love that. You were going to say something else, and I just kind of overspoke you. Okay, good. I saw you talking on the left, and I was running my mouth, so I wasn't sure about that.
I think you also mentioned that there were 2 types. One is palliative and one is the hospice house itself. I wanted to know how many people can actually be in the hospice house at any particular time.
So our hospice house consists of 12 private rooms, and the hospice house is near and dear to my heart. So it's very, everything we really are very appreciative to our community, because that is what makes the Hospice House as nice as it is because of community donations. And of course, our Hidden Treasures, which is our thrift store that also supports, unfunded families in town, because we never turn anyone away from hospice.
Yeah.
And so our Hospice House has respite care, which is for family caregiver relief. So if they're at the home in hospice, then they can get a 5-day care, like a 5-day, respite stay at the house. And that's every 30 days. So every month they get about 5 days, and that's coordinated through our teams. And then the other is general inpatient care. And so that is where symptoms cannot be managed at home. So their pain levels, their agitation, and we have 24-hour RN nursing and home health aides. We have a private chef at the house. So we manage all of their needs there.
So there's a couple things, there's a couple things that you just brought up that I really think that we should kind of break down. So I think a lot of our listeners, unless you have had a hospice experience within your circle, you really don't have a true comprehension of what hospice means. And I think that that's worth delving into. And I would like to take a small break right now. And when we come back in, I would like to touch base on understanding hospice in the hospital, hospice in the home, and hospice house, and how you might be one versus the other, and what the options may be for you and your loved ones. But we do have to take a small break. I want to go to our commercial sponsors, and Raul and I will be back momentarily.
My name is Mike Conway, and I'm with Royal Fund Management. We want to revolutionize your workplace retirement system. The recent Secure Act 2.0 legislation has opened the door for pooled employer plans, better known as PEPs. Learn how a PEP can revolutionize your 401k. Call me, Mike Conway, today. I'll give you a free benchmark of your current plan or set up a new plan. Visit SecureAct2info.com. That's SecureAct, the number 2, info.com.
Investment advisor representative of investment services offered through Royal Fund Management LLC, an SEC registered advisor. 401k maneuvers and other business name for Royal Fund Management.
Blue Dolphin Pools strives to provide quality service with a well-trained staff in the field and in the office. They want you to know that your pool or spa investment means much more to them than just another account. They believe you have entrusted them with your investment, and they'll do their best to see that it stays in top condition. Blue Dolphin Pool has been in business over 35 years, setting them apart from the competition. Residential or commercial, Blue Dolphin will keep you in the swim. 567-5853.
Oh, see, that's painless. We are so lucky. We have great commercial sponsors, but even more so, we have great show sponsors. And I would be remiss not to say thank you directly to our sponsors. I want to say a big, huge thank you to Dill, Evans, and Rotoback and Sebastian. If you are looking for elder care information, elder care law, or real estate law, please reach out to them. They're amazing. They've been in our community for over 25 years. I have no doubt they'll take care of you. On that note, we are back, and I told you it would be fast and painless. At least for me, it's fast and painless. And we were just starting to touch on the three avenues of which people may find themselves utilizing hospice. I personally had a really unique experience with a girlfriend of mine who was passing. It was happening quickly. She was in the hospital. They didn't want to really transition over to Hospice House. I think there wasn't a bed available at the time. We definitely didn't want to go home. And I was amazed at the realities that hospice actually came into the hospital, took over care for my girlfriend, and allowed her to transition peacefully under their care within the hospital environment. And that was a huge eye-opener for me. I mean, I work in our community. I work on the fringe of medical and on the fringe of geriatric services and care, and I did not know that. I thought, well, you had to go to Hospice House, and I was blown away by this new knowledge from experience. So now knowing that, I really want to share with our audience, with anybody watching, that reality that you don't have to be packed up and transitioned to Hospice House. You have multiple arenas in which hospice services and care can be provided to you. Can you kind of break that down for our listeners and explain one avenue versus another and what that might look like?
Sure. So hospice can be done at like wherever your home is. So it could be a skilled nursing home. It could be assisted living. And sometimes we do have to make, that choice at the hospital because they cannot, make it over to the hospice house. So we can have hospice, of course, at the hospice house. So it's really wherever your home is. So what hospice would look like at the home setting is that we would bring in like a hospital bed, whatever equipment that would be needed, a shower chair, a wheelchair. So we want them to be comfortable at home. And so then we would have a nurse, an RN nurse, come and visit, a home health aide. We have a chaplain. We have a music therapist. We have a medical social worker. So it's an interdisciplinary team that comes together, as well as Dr. Venazio. So they come together and they have a meeting, weekly on how their care is going and what is needed. And we have 24/7 availability for nursing. So they just make a call if they're at home, if they need, if the patient's restless, so we can always accommodate their needs.
Okay. So if somebody was at home and they were on hospice and the family sees a transition or a new struggle, they simply just call out to the hospice nurse assigned to them, and then they would get somebody to help guide them through those next steps.
Right.
And then if they were in Hospice House, they would be surrounded by that 24/7 clinical team available to monitor and manage them. And in the hospital environment, something I thought was unique is that, if I recall correctly, the hospital team themselves kind of pulled out of the clinical circle and it became just the hospice team. Is my memory serving me right with that?
To a degree, that's true. They do follow, they do follow the orders that are given by Dr. Venazio in the hospital. So it may be overnight. There may be something going on. They have to administer some medication or whatever. The staff nurses would take care of that.
Okay, because I remember some part of your conversation of that. So, but for the most part, hospice would be managing the care, and then they would be maintaining the orders on location.
I think it's important to understand, too, that probably 98% of our census load are home patients. So it's a very small amount when you really look at the centers that are actually in the hospice house or what we call GIP, general inpatient.
How many people a day across the board, hospital, home, and in hospice house, would you say that you get the honor of working with and helping?
Right now, our census is running a little over 200.
200.
So, and it's only I think we're at 10 in the hospice house. 10 of our 12 beds are full.
Right. Well, because it's a small environment.
So.
Wow. Well, speaking of the hospice house, I have had the pleasure of being able to come in and tour your hospice house and seeing what that looks like. Have you been over there, Raul?
I have not.
I highly encourage you to schedule a tour with the team there. I was blown away. One, they're palatial. They're beautiful rooms. They have patios attached to them, sitting areas for families. These are not small spaces. These are very comfortable, clean environments. And I think there's a lot of myths around what hospice house looks like or what it means, or that you might walk in and it's all these lines or IVs or cords attached to somebody, when indeed it's a very comfortable environment and space, and it's safe. And how can anybody come and tour hospice house?
Yes. Yeah, we have staff there all the time. They can always call me to schedule a tour.
And how would they get a hold of you?
They can call the VNA, and my name is Monica Gibbons, or you can call my cell phone, which I think they have listed up there.
I think so too. They'll put it up there.
So.
Jesse's been adding some great stuff up while we're having conversations today. But they can come in and tour it. They just, not maybe preemptively for their personal or family need, but to understand what you are offering to our community. I think it's imperative for people to remove that dark film of the view they have of hospice and hospice services.
I think that's very important, Janina. A great point that you made. It just helps relieve the stress that you feel that you're going to put your loved one in a place it's not comfortable for them and not good for them. And this is, like I said, the hospice house is so much better suited for people at end of life. I've seen a lot of people go through the skilled nursing facilities and stuff like that, and there's just it's a whole different animal, if you will, compared to that scenario.
Yeah,
and just the comfortability, just the way the staff is handling the people. The food that's prepared is prepared individually for each person, depending upon what their meals are.
And for families too, because they want those last moments to be focused on their time with their loved one, not with the tasks surrounding the care for them. So for those that get to go to hospice, I mean, that's a huge difference in their experience through that transition with their loved ones. So I'm blown away by the level of comfort and detail involved at Hospice House. Hospice House exists because of a lot of donors, right?
Yes.
So you had alluded to something earlier that nobody is turned away from hospice services, right?
We have a wonderful foundation that they actually just did their golf-a-thon on Monday. And so that was really successful. So some of that, so they can help, allocate where, indigent families, in the county. And so we never turn anyone away. Like children, they don't have Medicare. So that, we would take on that responsibility because we never want to turn anyone away.
And you service all ages and all community members, from very young newborns well up until the octogenarian ages and above, right? So that's a wonderful thing to remove that stressor from those families. It doesn't cost them their future earnings to provide comfort and care for their loved ones in this time, right?
Right. There's no money exchange there, at all. So it's everyone is eligible for hospice, and that is through their Medicare benefit.
I love that.
So even if you have an Advantage plan, it reverts back to their Medicare.
It goes back to that no matter what. Oh, that's great news to hear. There are a lot of family members that don't want to have these conversations. They don't have an experience to draw from when it comes their time at the table. And for those individuals, I encourage them. I encourage anybody watching the show to reach out to Monica, reach out to the VNA team, and go get a mini education on what might impact your family, your future decisions and choices, because this team is amazing. It's not just Monica, it's a multitude of team members, and they're out there advocating for our community members, our community residents.
I mean, I think it'd be great. Something I learned today that I didn't know about was the respite, where the family can have a little bit of a break, which is always something that most families talk about. Like, oh my gosh, it's so hectic. I'm all the time there. And it'd be great to tell some of my clients that, look, if you really need some time, there's a 5-day gap each month that you can, get some additional help, which, I mean, I think it's great. It gives everybody a little bit more peace of mind and an alternative.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Respite is extremely important. There's a lot of weight on caregivers, and some families are lucky enough to be able to bring in private caregivers to help alleviate that pressure and that weight. But often it is the family members themselves that are rushing around and doing the hard work, and it becomes very difficult emotionally, physically. So to know that there is an option for them to reboot and reestablish that strength before they come back to that table to fight it out again for their loved ones, this is beautiful to know, and that they can utilize that. Is there a requirement from outside physicians for services like that, for them to do an assessment to get them in for respite, or how does that look?
So not for respite, but to get on hospice, we would need a physician order. And I think that's our biggest challenge is you don't have to wait for the doctor to bring up hospice. You can bring up hospice to the doctor.
Self-advocate.
And
yes.
we always have seminars going around the community, so they can always, join in one of those. I can always come out and speak to you about hospice in your home, with family members. So that's always important to.
Right. And I think some people are so scared to talk about hospice or reach out about it because they have this preconception that it is definitively the end. Right. And when we talked earlier that there's obviously two very distinct levels of hospice services and care. And palliative, people can be on palliative for a very long time and a very long period of time of having relief and assistance and comfort and having a quality of life still, while still receiving services, so that they're not necessarily throwing in the towel, but they've got partnerships.
Right.
They've got support structures, and they've got a clinical team, a team. So do you have any other questions, Raul?
Well, one of the things I was wondering about was the hospital, and how the team coordinates, but I think you've answered that by saying that you can work in conjunction with the staff. And I think that's great. That there's that easy exchange so that the person can continue to get the care that they need.
I mean, the overall goal is to try to get them over to the hospice house if that's the situation that's ongoing. But if the hospice house is full, that's typically the only reason we're going, or they can't be transported because of, whatever's going on.
This was so much information, and I'm so grateful for your time, Elton and Monica. Thank you so much. Please, if you have any questions, any concerns, reach out to the team over at VNA Hospice. They'll educate you, they'll meet with you, and I have no doubt that you'll find great compassion and empathy for them. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.